Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Spiritual Psychics TV and the Being Spiritual Show with me, your host, Ashley Robinson. Wonderful to have you joining us this evening, either live or on playback. It's the 18th of June. The sun has been shining and also the world has been flooding all in the same week. Very interesting week, but a good week. And I do hope that you've had a good fortnight since we last spoke. If you're joining us for the first time, do give us a special hello. Let us know where you're watching the show from. Tonight is a spiritualist philosophy show and a chat in particular this evening about your spiritual guides and inspirers, including towards the end of the evening, a little practical meditation, something you can take away to help meet your guides. If you are joining us on Facebook, just make sure you've opened up the main stream from Spiritual Psychic TV and participate by writing on the wall. Our production and producer Richard James will then be able to bring those comments forward to me. If you're on YouTube, please make sure you've logged in and you participate in the live chat, and we'll be able to get those comments as well. And folks, lovely to have you with us. Do give us some love if you can on Facebook when we're doing the right things. If we make you laugh, then bring up a laughing, smiling face. And if you love what we've just said, then show that too. Of course, if there's something not quite right, let us know. Give us the opportunity to improve it. If you are able to, consider sharing this stream, perhaps sharing your wall, perhaps even tag a friend, let them know you're watching a spiritual philosophy show this evening when we're talking about spirit guides. Really keen to hear from you. Also, if you are a long-term viewer, if you're coming back, give us a hello, give us a wave, let us know where you are this evening. And hopefully you've all had, as I said, a good couple of weeks. Looking forward to the show this evening. Looking forward to talking about our spirit guides, our guides, our team, our spirit team. And I'll tell you a little bit about my team. I'm really interested for you to share things with me. But practically, we're also going to talk about how to meet your spirit guides, how to understand them, how to feel their influence and their inspiration. So a warm welcome to you all. We'll do a couple of hellos now. Rose Anderson, good evening to you. Karen Louise Taylor, good evening. Joins us on Facebook. Jeanette Turner, hiya. Wendy Lindsay says hello to me and Richard. Good evening, Wendy. Michaela Hanna, first time watching from Birmingham. Well, hi, Michaela Hanna. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. And Richard James says he's got your message and he'll respond to you. Respond even. He'll do a response to you later. Julie Caswell, thanks for liking and sharing. Julia Hay, hiya. Joanne Lewis, good evening to you. Sherry William, g'day. You have the same name as my daughter. It's a beautiful name. G'day to you. Rachel Siram, good evening, everybody. Hiya, Rachel. Hiya, Christine. Terry Wall, lovely Terry. Hiya, Terry. Good evening to you. Okay. And Kristen Murray, good evening to you. Cheryl Johnson says good evening. Hiya, Cheryl. Christine Davis, good evening to you. Kim Harknett, good evening, Richard, Ashley, and everybody. Hiya. Alison Barton says good evening, everyone. Hiya, Alison. Chrissy Hunter, think I'm addicted to this YouTube channel. Love listening to the messages. Chrissy, great. Glad that that's the only thing contagious in your life. And welcome to the community. And for those that don't know too much about the community, do engage with SPTV fan page on Facebook. Follow us on the social media channels too. Instagram and Twitter, Spiritual Psychics TV, and me at Ash Robinson Medium. Good evening, Jim. Good old Jim Blythe. Mary Dixie, my ex-circle leader. Hiya, Mary. Good evening, Mum and Dad. A lovely Shirley. Hiya, Shirley Monaco. Good evening. Christine Davis says, congratulations, Alison Bardson, on your level 1 mediumship. Yes, congratulations indeed. Well done, Alison. Thanks for giving us the heads up, Christine Davis. Hiya, Sally Worker. Good evening to you, Sally. Sally, I think this was your suggestion on the SPTV fan page to do a show on meeting your guides. Jan Jan says good evening. Hiya, Jan Jan. Victoria Dunnett, good evening to you. Claire Ford Grounds, first time watching. Hiya, Claire. So it's a spiritual philosophy show tonight, and we're talking about meeting our spirit guides. Sharon Rogers says hello to us both. Hiya, Sharon. Denise Jarrett says good evening. First time here. Looking forward. Great. We've got quite half a dozen first time viewers to the show tonight, which is lovely. Lols Emmett. Hello. Hiya, Lols. Yeah, I think I've managed to engage with most of you on the chat. Lynn Taylor says hi to everybody. If I haven't specifically mentioned by name, I say good evening to you, and good evening to you all. Thank you for the continued support, both live and during the playbacks. Approaching probably around a year now, and I said to Richard, do you think anyone's interested in spiritualist philosophy? Can I tell them a little bit about mine and my principles and what's continued to influence me? And it's been an incredible thing to be part of, and I'm learning all the time. Tracy Locke says good evening. So tonight then we're going to talk about spiritual guides, our own spirit guides, and how we sort of meet them. Casey Tanner says hello. Hiya, Casey, on YouTube. Janine Garrett, good evening to you too. Hiya, Janine. And Sally Tequila Blanks, hello from Sally. Sally Tequila, I love that. I hope that is your real name. That's a great name. Almost like Danger being my middle name. Actually, it's Charles. Sally and everybody, special hello to you. Thank you. So, yes, spirit guides. And for those that watch our mediumship on SPTV Saturday nights and some of the other shows, you'll hear often mediums talking about their guides and what their guides are giving them. We've had a whole show too about receiving messages and the way that sort of mediums work. For those that have seen me work spiritually as a medium, delivering mediumship, you might hear me talk about a guy called Bob. Now, Bob Brunton was someone I knew while I was alive, and after his life after life, I believe that Bob continued to work with me from the spirit world, and often associate Bob with a huge amount of protection. You know, as a young man growing up, he was always a big, strong guy. He was a spiritual healer, very powerful healer. He'd also been a boxer, and you saw that physique in him. For me, he was associated with protection. And when I started working at a mediumship level, Bob Brunton was one of the first sort of communicators who had told me he was going to work with me in my mediumship. And the term I sometimes use to describe Bob is that of a doorkeeper or a gatekeeper. I see him as my spiritual bouncer. I tell people, you know, for instance, he is on the door to the waiting room that bridges this world and the spirit world, or that place I like to call heaven. And it was easy for me to recognize Bob as a sort of personality because I knew Bob very well while he was alive. And therefore, when he came into the spirit world, it was easy for Bob to give me evidence of his personality and his consciousness as a communicator. And then through sitting in Circle, it was Circle leader Jill Hay, who now lives in heaven, that had given me confirmation that she also had Bob as a communicator, saying exactly that he was going to work with me in the spirit world. But Mary Dixie, who I mentioned here as a circle leader, who I'd sat with before that, had actually introduced me to one of my first guides, one of the first guides I was more aware about, a guy that I now refer to, a personality, a male influence I refer to as Bear, or Running Bear in particular. And Running Bear had a life, I believe, in Native American India. During the time that the British were starting to grow out and grow plantations in and around Virginia. And I've got to know Bear over the last sort of, you know, all my life really, but as a medium, didn't start working for me until I was about 18. So I've got about 20 years experience of getting to know Bear. And it's only really the last sort of 12 to 18 months that I've started to find out more and more information about him. And the way I see it is that Bear is probably my gatekeeper, and that Bob, you know, effectively works for him in the spirit world. So we're going to talk a lot about meeting your guides and getting to know them. Probably around 9 o'clock ish, just after the adverts. I've got a little meditation we can do that is something you can practice to kind of meet your gatekeepers. But I want to talk a little bit around the roles of those inspirers we have in the spirit world. And I'll bring in a couple more sort of influences about my own team and how I'm working with that team. For those that have watched the show before, I've often read quotes from different books and different people. And I like to believe that those people who are incredible authors, even if I didn't know them, if they could help people from the spirit world, then they would continue to do so. One of the greatest healers, I think, that probably existed since Jesus, who was no doubt a healer and a great medium, was a guy called Harry Edwards. And I think that if Harry Edwards could help thousands, if not millions of people that are on earth right now with their healing, then I'm absolutely certain he would. So I do think that when people have a life after this life, there are different opportunities for them. Time means something entirely different to them. But in order to start, I now want to rewind to the beginning. I want to rewind to the concept. Now, if people have specific questions based on something I've just said, throw it up in the live chat or on the wall of this video stream. Otherwise, we're probably going to stop in about 20 minutes, half an hour anyway, and take some questions. But great that I've got people like Elaine Walker. Good evening to you. First time watching. Hi, Elaine. So I've always believed, and the way I understand it is that as a human being, our difference of incarnation, if you like, the incarnation as a human being is something that probably started in the spirit world, that place I call heaven. And I believe that the human body and all the various interfaces in that human body, the presence of our consciousness, the presence of our personality is what makes the human body different from that of a human being and a corpse. And it's actually the absence of that personality which leads to the change we call death. And it's the evidence of the continuation of the life of that personality that, as a medium, I believe it's my job to sort of bring through and give evidence. So the incarnation of the human body, the incarnation of us, our consciousness, our personality, and all the various things that start to, like a onion or a sandwich layer, all those various interfaces of the human body. I think that regardless of whether or not it is our first incarnation or our, 100,000th incarnation, the important thing is that we have people in that place I call heaven ready to help us. As a spiritualist, we've often spoke about the thing that one of the greatest things we can do as a spiritualist to show love, to show and practice unconditional love, is that practice of service, about doing things unconditionally for other people. So if we do that in our physical 3D incarnation, why wouldn't we do it as a pure spirit being? And although dedicating your life to that of guiding someone else for what might be 100 years as an incarnation may seem strange, I think that 100 years in the spirit world sense, because time doesn't really exist in the same way it does here, actually can go through in a blink of an eye. So if we take the incarnation of me, Ashley Robinson, I do believe that let's assume as well that there is an element of me choosing this life and choosing the experiences, and certainly some of the big experiences, the destiny experiences, that I would have had the opportunity to decide who was going to guide me, who was going to dedicate their entire, my entire incarnation. They were going to dedicate all of their time to being with me. And I think we all have that sole purpose, that sole person. And although I call it the spirit world or heaven, I believe, and the evidence I've had from my guides, is that that is, for want of a better words, more of a perfected soul. Someone who has had so many experiences, both in this 3D incarnation or many incarnations, that they've perfected themselves as a soul, as a spirit being, to such a point that they now are in the perfect opportunity to guide someone that's going through those experiences on the training planets, Earth, that incarnation, our lives as we're living them, recognizing that as incredible and powerful as we are, we're very fragile in this little shell. There's an awful lot of things that can go wrong, both during conception and pregnancy, right through to all the different things and all the different decisions we must make. It's a big job. And someone dedicates our entire incarnation, they dedicate their life in that part for up to 100 years, however long we're going to live, to that purpose. And they are there to help us, to get us going forward, onwards and upwards, to help us try and achieve the things and go through the experiences we're meant to be. And they are there. And for those that listened to the reincarnation show and the chats on karma, we spoke about that concept of, effectively discovering that in life you are equipped with a two-way radio between this world and the spirit world. And it's only once you're aware that it's there that you can then work out how to use it. And once you're working out to use it and how to tune in, you can actually talk to these guides or this team. And I think that actually that guide is with us the whole time. And when we first incarnate, because we've just come from that place of pure thought, of pure energy, then as a baby, we are very, very close to that energy. We're understanding the presence of that guide. And of course, we are then starting to pick up on all of the external impact factors, our parents and our family and our friends. And we become very dependent on people that are going to keep us alive and warm and dry and well fed. James is a first-time watcher. Good evening to you. Hiya, James Downing. Welcome, sir. And that principal guide, as they're there, we could think about that. We've often likened that principal guide to that concept of sort of Jiminy Cricket to Pinocchio, trying to help them know the difference between right and wrong, to keep them on the straight and narrow. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can be more aware of that guide and how we can access the radio. Bagita, my good friend Bagita, hiya. She says, we are here to walk one another home through the casting of one's experiences upon each other. Beautifully said, Bagita. And no doubt many of the things and lessons I've learned for you, you'll recognize in my own language when I talk about 3D incarnations and experiences, or Earth as the trailing planet. So lovely to have your thoughts tonight, Bagita. So that principal guide then, helping us through those experiences, helping us through right and wrong, recognizing that it is up to us. We have our own free will, and we act on our own free will because we make up our own decisions. We have no memory whatsoever, assuming there was an opportunity to choose our life and choose our experiences. We are starting afresh. We also have no knowledge, if we have lived a past life, of that past life. So it's all about this life. It's all about the experiences. It's all about stepping through. And we've explored the concepts of meditation, attunement in one's mind eye, about clearing that mirror in the mind's eye. And it's at that point we can get to know that principal guide. I'm going to talk a little bit more about meeting them, but I just want to plant the seed because we spoke a little bit about the gatekeeper and the bouncer or the door person. This person, I believe, also dedicates their entire spirit existence during our incarnation to us, to protecting us. They are there as the doorkeeper between the world that we live in as a 3D incarnation, as the new human, and the spirit world. And they are there to make sure we don't get into harm's way spiritually seeking. They are there to help us with our protection and with our attunement. But of course, if they were, for want of a better words, a bodyguard, and we make a free will decision to invite something or someone harmful into our lives, then it wouldn't matter if I had a bodyguard outside my front door. If I leave my front door open or someone knocks on it and I invite them in, then there's very little my bodyguard can do. But recognize they are there as that bodyguard, as that bouncer, as that door keeper, and they are part of the team. And I'll say a little bit more about Bear and Bob that I see in that team. So, our principal guide then, recognizing this two-way radio. If we think about the way that we make decisions now, if we think about the way that we're led, perhaps we make some of our decisions based on our brain and our intelligence around all of the things that we can see and hear and feel. And all of that information starts to get processed by the brain. The brain will perhaps look at risks, it will look at opportunities, it will look at the options, it will look at our own sort of training and skills, it will look at the impact factors of the things that are going on in our life, and then we will act. Other times, our heart will drive us, and the heart knows what it wants. And perhaps the heart is in pursuit of happiness and love. And sometimes the heart and the brain come into conflict, but often they're in absolute harmony. And then, of course, there is that stomach feeling, isn't it? There's that gut feeling about something right or something wrong. There's that bit that kicks in and says, you're doing the right thing, so keep doing it, or that's the wrong thing. And there is the line drawn in the sand, do not cross it. All of those experiences in this body, I believe, are part of getting to know our principal guide. Now, I don't know the name of my principal guide. I'm not necessarily aware of them at a conscious level, but as a subconscious level, I'm becoming more and more aware about them. And of course, if they are a perfected soul, as opposed to a communicator who's had a recent life on earth, then actually, why would they be attached to just that one personality? Why would they necessarily have to give me evidence of a personality or a last personality they had? All of that is perhaps irrelevant. And as I talk about my own guides, and I spoke a little bit about Bear as my doorkeeper, I think that was certainly one of Bear's lives. And I believe it was Bear's last life on Earth, his last incarnation. And therefore, he's quite comfortable in that space. But this perfected soul who is attaching themselves to us to guide us through this incarnation, for them, I think labels is less important. Gender. Gender is a very physical thing in a physical body, but it's understanding that intuition, that instinct, that heart drive, that brain drive. And all we can really do to get to know those people more is begin to establish and understand that there is something greater than ourselves. And for some of us, it's very difficult to believe there is anything greater than ourselves. I do. Some people talk about a supreme being or a great architect to the universe, of God, of Mother God, of Father God, of Mother, Father God. Indeed, I dedicate an entire show to perhaps what and who God is, the sum particles of all of the energies of the entire creation. But recognizing that there is something greater than ourselves, be that a force, be that a presence, being that a being or several beings. It's the opportunity to surrender ourselves to their will, to be guided, to be directed, and also to ask that guide to help us. And it's at that point when we're thinking, what do I do? Do I zig or do I zag? Do I turn left? Do I turn right? Do I continue? Do I make a tactical withdrawal? Do I retreat? All of those things, the guide is with us, just like Jiminy Cricket in Pinocchio. So we can practice that by surrendering ourselves to their will, recognizing that we're in charge. We have the power to make our decisions. We are the architect of our own lives, the captain of our own destiny and our own ships. But by surrendering ourselves to them, asking them for that steer, that's all part of that two-way radio. Because if there is a map, if there is a purpose, if our experiences or series of experiences are like dominoes lined up, perhaps that person is in a position to see the map, to know the direction, to hold us like a piece of elastic towards that destiny. And by recognizing that they're there and asking them questions and focusing on that ability to attune to them, then there is the opportunity to feel that drive, to know when to cross the road or to stay, to know when to turn around. And I'd be really grateful if anyone wants to share their own experiences about recognizing that presence or how they understand them. Within religions like Christianity, people might refer to this guide as their guardian angel. Now, depending on your own understanding and belief of angels, perhaps it is your guardian angel. Perhaps it is a perfected soul from that angelic kingdom. Perhaps it is a person within the spirit world who, just like us, has had experiences, Perhaps they've had a lot more experiences than us. Perhaps they've had so many experiences, it makes them a good advisor because they've gone through it, and they now in the spirit world have the ability to remember that in order to dedicate that service back to us to guide us through that. And for me, that principal guide is attached to us from conception right through birth and continues to be with us. And we become smart people. We follow our heart, we follow our lust, we follow the things and the people that we enjoy being with, the people that we love being with. We love being around, doing those things that we love. But of course, they're always there. Perhaps it's more background or white noise, but it's all about learning to quieten down the other background noise and focus on that. Birgitte says, but Ash, we're all of the starseed descent. Yeah, absolutely. Another another show for another night. But yes, and there is all some purpose there, Birgitte. Thank you for adding that. So that's my understanding of our guide, our soul guide that is dedicating that consciousness to us. Or if we are the consciousness, they are part of our conscious. They are helping us on the right road. Michaela Hanna says, how do you establish who it is, etc.? Like, what part do they play in the spirit world? Good question, Michaela, and I think it's good actually to for me to try and answer that before I get on to my doorkeeper, because for me there is only one afterlife, and by afterlife I mean our life after this life. But that spirit world, and as I say, I quite like calling it heaven, that spirit world has perhaps many different frequencies. If we're all energy and our life after life is pure energy and pure thought, then the spirit world could possibly be vibrating at different levels. And when we first get to the spirit world, we're sort of vibrating like this. And actually, the perfected souls that have been over there for such a long time, or they've been to and from so many times, they're vibrating perhaps faster or even higher. And perhaps that's why within many religions, we think about heaven as being higher, because it's at a higher energy. So I think that this spirit being, let's call them a spirit being, they are there in this spirit world, and they are there to guide us through the experiences we're going to have in our life and to help us know the difference between right and wrong. And they are there to be part of it. But because they don't have the focus on labels, they don't necessarily need to identify with a particular incarnation they had or a particular life they had. But I do believe they've had many experiences on earth as a human being in order to get that job. If you think about applying for it in the spirit world using our sort of modern 3D terms and the CV you'd need, you know, to apply. Well, I'm going to go and guide Ashley Robinson. He's about to be born on the 29th of September 1982, and the mother's going to have a difficult time. And I've already chatted to her guide. We have an ongoing relationship. Here are my credentials. Here is my CV. You can see that actually I've been there and done that several times, and I've been there and done this. And actually, at some point, he's going to get into the enjoyment of alcohol and experiment. And I've been there and done that. And I can perhaps help him there. And he's going to have some friends that go on this journey. And well, I've already spoke to their team, and they're going to need this guidance. Now, I play a little, but for me, thinking that plain English simple term makes sense. And he's put with the credentials. And of course, there's me. I'm going to say, yeah, I'm the soul that's going to take on the incarnation of Ashley Robinson. And I definitely want you for the job. I want to make sure you guide me through that, because as I look at that map and I look at that journey, I'm definitely going to need you at that point in my life. But I recognize perhaps I'm going to spend several years not really understanding, almost tolerating that you're there because I'm not using you. So, Michaela, I hope that answers your question. And, you know, I'm 38 years old now. I've been born in spiritualism. I've always believed that we have a principal guide with us or a guardian angel watching over us. I've been sitting in circles for over 20 years, and I still don't have an identity as such for my spirit guide. I just know that they're there. And I know that it's influencing me and inspiring me to do the right thing, to keep going in the right direction. And difficult things that happen in my life, it's often my wife that reminds me it wasn't meant to be. And if it feels right when someone says stuff like that to you, that for me is the guide. Now, Terry Wall says, I know I'm guided by spirits and I feel them around, especially when I need to know they're there. But knowing details about a particular guide, I have no clue. Low, but I do need to know. Not really. and dot dot dot. I think there's obviously a bit more there, Richard. But the important thing for me, Terry, is recognizing that our soul guide is there just for us. They've got us by the reins of elastic. They let us wander off, but if we wander too far off the path that we're meant to be on, they can just give us a little tug. And if we're listening, we'll feel that elastic pulling us back to the straight and narrow. Whereas our doorkeeper is effectively applying for the job during in our incarnation of saying, between this world and the world of that incarnation, I am on duty 24/7 and I will protect them. I will protect Ashley Robinson from the moment of conception to ensure there is no harmful energies that can participate between those two worlds. And I will guide him in that sense. I've always imagined my doorkeeper to be like the Black Knight of Monty Python, standing there with the sword. You know, I stand for love, light, and truth. I recognize Bob with his boxing skills on that door, checking out people's credentials when I'm working as a medium. But as I say, it was sitting in circle with Mary through meditation that I started to explore more about my guides, about my guide team, and about my gatekeeper. And it took me a long time after starting to see the guide. There was a huge amount of my own conscious life and bias that said it couldn't be right. Because how convenient was it for me at 18 years old to have a Native American Indian guide? I'd been brought up in spiritualism. Native American Indian guides feature a lot. And for me, it was like, well, how do I know I'm not just inventing this? I know so many people that have a Native American Indian guide. But of course, as I've got to know that guide more, as as they reminded me now, actually, there was this idea of them being quite happy to identify as that, because while they're working with mediumship terms, giving evidence of the personality, the communicator, the life they had makes sense. So my doorkeeper could almost show me any of their lives, but the life they show is something which was hopefully quite compatible with where they are. And although the Native American Indians and how they lived sort of quite naturally in that sort of lifestyle, actually it was very spiritual. And no doubt was they gave evidence from their ancestors and they took inspiration from that. It was quite a natural thing to do, as are many other religions. Now, talking about Mary Dixie, she said, I met my doorkeeper in a sleep state in which, other than them seeing them, gave me their name. And we spoke about, haven't we, a few times, folks, about in our sleep state, how in the right protection, we can start to wander off and explore more with that world. Because when we're in the sleep state, those interfaces kind of go into standby. The physical body is having a bit of a rest and a recharge. So your spiritual self, your higher self, your mind can go off and wander. Now, Stayshaw says, my spirit guide that helps me with my poetry was also a poet, writer, author on Earth, and was half like a Native American. Lovely, Stace. And actually, that sort of gets me on to the next point, because I say in about 20 minutes, I want to finish with a little guide, a little guided meditation to meet our gatekeeper. Sally says, I've never had the same guide described to me twice, have been told of a few. Absolutely, Sally. And it's brilliant, isn't it? Us as mediums, you have to remember our personal discipline, but it's so easy as a medium to say, Sally, I've got one of your guides here, Fred Bloggs, who was a Native American Indian. Strange name, I know, Fred Bloggs, but that's what he's told me. And he's your guide. Look out for him. But it means nothing to you. And of course, you've got to go off and try and find them. Ultimately, for me, it's when you find and feel the presence of your guides that you start to understand more about them and you start to receive more of that evidence yourself. However, for me, it's like breadcrumbs. And Mary helping me in circle over those weeks and weeks of practice to open up, to be at peace with my guides. Having confirmation that you weren't inventing things was really important. It was really important for me. Equally, although I'm saying that we have at least two principal guides, our guide that helps aid our conscious and our doorkeeper, we indeed have many, many more. And I think that with my philosophy, I have a whole team of guides that inspired this talk tonight. There is Mr. Ralph Steadman, who I knew while I was alive, who continues to influence me from the spirit world, as well as Jill Hay, my spiritual teacher and circle leader. There is a man that I've only just become aware of over the last month called Gerald, who was a university lecturer and professor that helps me with my talking and my investigation into philosophy. I know that I have a Native American Indian guide that works alongside Bear that influences my philosophy. I know I have an ancient sort of civilization guides links back to Egypt, Mexican, and the Mayans. I know I've also got inspiration from ancient Mongolia in about 4000 BC. And as I start to understand those guides and how they work together, it's their combined energies that then start to influence the talks and the shows that I'm sort of doing tonight. So I think the important thing is you finding out about your guides, recognizing they don't have a body, the evidence that they give of a life that they had is convenient for us, because as humans we like to compartmentalize things. We like names, don't we? We like labels and names rather than just filling the presence. You go, who are you? What's your name? How do I recognize you? Can you give me an icon or a token or a word that I'll know it's you, and then we'll know that we're working together. And for me, my mediumship, although bears an important part of being the gatekeeper, it's Bob that's got front of house, that's opening the door, that's dressed up in his tuxedo with a clipboard saying, yeah, I want these people forward for the communicators. I know that I then have a team of people that influence my mediumship, the way I deliver my messages. I know when I send out absent healing, I have the influence of previous, I have a medicine man. I also have doctors and nurses, people that might have had an incarnation in that physical profession that then continue to influence me. The difference is that my soul guide, who looks after me for my entire incarnation, got the job for my life. In the same way, I believe our doorkeeper has the job for life. I think the other guides come in as and when we need them. Like Stace was talking about her poetry, someone that had some physical skills. In our last show, when we spoke about Jesus, the medium teacher, we spoke about spiritual gifts. And I think one of the possible concepts is that the more experiences we have, potentially the more lives we live, as we start to reduce that negativity, that negative energy, or that negative karma, one of the advantages of coming back may be that some of our spiritual gifts include skills and strengths and talents that we may have had in previous lives. Sometimes I think this describes sort of child prodigies that can suddenly master the piano. Equally, there are just skills that people pick up very, very quickly. So these guides come and go as we need them. When I was playing the keyboard about 9 years old, I like to think, because I was terrible at it, that someone that knew how to play the keyboard came in and said, I'll give Ash a hand. I'll try and do him with that. As someone with dyslexia, I struggle now with my reading and writing. And not only do I feel the presence of people that would have had a profession in teaching trying to help me, I've also got other guides that are trying to slow me down and recognize that I'm not as good at reading and writing. So slow down, take a reasonable amount of time. So I've got a question that's come up from Richard, actually. I wonder why they call them guides and not advisors. Do they guide us and not do certain things, or does that come down to free will? Great question, Richard. And I think it's up to you, isn't it, how you call them? Are they a guide and they say this way if you want to, or do they give us advice? Are they there to help? Now, the discipline you have as a medium is you say that even if I give you evidence of a communicator, the communicator is not necessarily here to help. They might give you their opinion, and therefore that could be considered advice, and therefore they are an advisor. If you decide that their opinion and their advice helps you, then you are deciding that it has helped you. In the same way that if I'm hurtling down the M25 at 70 miles an hour and I decide to heavy foot to increase the speed, if I've got a guide advising me not to do that because it's against the law, and another guide advising that actually I won't be able to react as quickly, I've also got another guide saying you're going to have to come off the junction soon and you'll get there in the same way anyway. It's up to me and whether or not I accept that advice, whether or not they inspire me to change lanes. Perhaps from their elevated position, they can see a little bit further down the road and they know there's traffic, and therefore they're inspiring me to slow down before I have to physically react to the conditions. All of those things are possible, but yes, I agree with you, Richard. It comes down to free will, how you accept and interpret the so-called advice, help, guidance, inspiration. All of those things are up to you to decide what to do with them, and therefore it's your own free will and accord that you go on next. So these different people come in and out of our lives to guide us, to inspire us. I call them the team. And for this particular run of fortnightly shows, I call my team the executive committee. And in my mind, I associate some of the personalities of people I know, like Ralph Steadman, that I see as the chairman of my executive committee. But I don't feel that these people are exclusive to me. But knowing Ralph, if Ralph could help 1 million people, why wouldn't he? And if I'm one of the million from the spirit world and he can spare some time volunteering as my chairperson or my chairman, then I absolutely believe he would. And the same way I spoke about Harry Edwards. And of course, people that have been in the spirit world, although I said time doesn't exist in the same way it does for them, it does for us. Time is relevant. And therefore, perhaps people that have been in the spirit world a longer period of time, they're less attached to their personality, or perhaps they love the personality of the last incarnation so much they wear it like an interface in the spirit world. Now, Denise says, do you think that guides and guardian angels are the same thing? We choose the terminology. Denise, in my opinion, yes, I think we do choose the terminology. There are some wonderful people that could talk a lot about angels and the angel kingdom, the angel realm, and perhaps the influence they have. In my personal opinion, I've always felt that the Christianity term behind guardian angel is what I refer to in spiritualism as my soul guide. My guide who is dedicated there in spirit purpose during my incarnation to unconditional love and service. So I think it's exactly the same thing. And I think the labels are the fact that we're choosing the terminology. Now, within spiritualism, you have a lot of people that are far more knowledgeable than me on angels, and they'll talk about angels perhaps as ascended masters or mistresses. You know, I'm adding gender there to something that isn't actually needed. Perhaps they are perfected souls, which is that word I was using earlier on. People that have had so many different experiences, including certainly experiences as a 3D incarnation on Earth, that they get to a point that they can guard us as angels. I think that there are some beautiful Hollywood shows that have done this quite well. One of my favorite was Highway to Heaven, when, you know, perfected souls and angels would come down and help people. Now, Haley Stamp says, how does free will allow us to see into someone's future and get it right? 22 years ago, I was told about something that happened a fuse. So I think there's different interpretations for this. I genuinely believe as a medium, it's impossible to predict the future, because as a medium, my job is to give evidence of life after life, evidence from a communicator about their life and personality, and about what's going on in your life. And because you have free will, the future has not yet been written. However, I do believe in an element of destiny. I do believe in the concept of incarnation and reincarnation and past life. Now, they're not necessarily part of spiritualism, but for me, within my spirituality, I think that my knowledge of reincarnation, or the concept of it, is quite important, because I do believe that because of destiny, there is an opportunity to choose elements of your incarnation, even if it's only the point of, I would like an experience as a man. You do that. So now I'd like an experience as a woman. Now I'd like experience as a fat man or a slim man or an older man that dies earlier, or a man that is born with everything they need. And I want to be a man that was born with nothing. I want to be born as a person that spends the entire time looking for food. All of those different options. And then you say, now I want to do that in a different country. All of those things are an element of destiny associated to the incarnation as part of experiences. In the same way, I'm saying about choosing that incarnation, perhaps choosing your team, your guardian angel, your soul guide. I think there are certain things that are meant to happen. I'm very lucky in that I believe I met my best friend and fell in love with her and married Claire. We've been together about 21 years now ago. And I do believe that at a soul level, we had an agreement that we wanted to find each other in this life, in our incarnations, and find each other again. In the same way that I believe members of my own family, we have traveled through in different incarnations, different times as a group. And because I believe in that, I then ask my own guides for inspiration about that. There's this element of destiny. And for people that are very good at reading, say, the tarot cards and doing more of a psychic reading, that will say they can see the things which the cards or the planets, the astrology is telling them about. So free will can bugger up destiny, I think is what I'm trying to say. But actually, if you go with the flow, you heard that term before, you stick to the straight and narrow, you're being pulled back on those elastic reins, then actually it's quite possible to live a bit of a pre-programmed life. And your free will is to go with that flow. But when you challenge the status quo, that's when things change. So if I'm meant to live a healthy life until I'm 92 years old, but I make a decision to take up a new hobby of jumping in front of trains and I increase the risks in a fragile body, I end up going to the spirit world earlier, then I actually think that you can change that destiny because of free will. And sadly, I think that the free will of others can screw up your destiny, because if you're happy go lucky, going on with the flow, living all the experiences you're meant to do, and someone else's free will decides to make a decision to deprive you of that liberty, deprive you of your life and take that life, then you could end up in a spirit world saying, well, that wasn't meant to be. Equally, perhaps it was. So other people's free will, your own free will, can sort of start to mess with destiny. But to a certain extent, the universe will find a way. There is an element of destiny, I think, in all of our lives, because it's all about pursuit of happiness, a mission in pursuit of finding utopia, paradise, the promised land, the land of milk and honey. And it's all about pushing us in that direction. So in order in seeing something, and some of us have been able to see things that are going to happen, sometimes it's because it's part of destiny. 22 years is quite a long time, so you'd argue it was probably part of destiny. When it's things in our short-term future, I think that because heaven is a very great opportunity to see the big picture, sometimes our communicators just see the big and the whole picture. So if I'm having a bit of a difficult time at work and I'm not enjoying myself, then my nan, who I used to ring him all the time and moan about work, would see that. She'd see that from the spirit world. She might also see other people that are looking to perhaps recruit. And she knows that I know them. She knows that perhaps I'm polishing up my CV. So my nan might come in as a communicator and predict the fact that I'm going to change jobs because A, she knows I'm unhappy or miserable. B, she knows I'm applying for jobs. And C, she knows someone else that she can see that's going to recruit and is going to talk to me. So sometimes I think there's an element of communicators predicting future or talking about a path. Other times, I think it's because of the journey we're on and the experience. So I live in South London, near a place called Wimbledon. If I was traveling from where I live to the city of London, there's only about a dozen different ways I could do it. And some I lack the means. I don't have any money or means to fly there. I could walk there, I could cycle there, I could jog there, which is unlikely. If you ever see me running, folks, call the police. Someone's probably chasing me. But there's only so many ways I could get to the city of London. Perhaps I could take a tube or a train or a bus, and therefore spirit that are around us might be able to say, well, actually, I know that Ash has an Oyster card. He doesn't like the tube, but likes the train. They could start to predict it in that way. Now, Stace says, absolutely, Ashley. Through experience, I believe some things are engineered by other forces and energies. Absolutely. And I think that the word angel and guardian angel, just like highway to heaven, perhaps there are people that are in our lives because they're meant to be. Perhaps they have a soul contract with us, a contract we've agreed, not just for my experiences, but for theirs. And we talk about all of our own experiences. I do believe that perhaps some people are only here to help others. There's this beautiful video which I've seen on YouTube, which is a telepathic version of two young girls talking about why they have to go to Earth to be with their friends and family. And they said, well, why would you come and do it? Well, to help them. My friends and family are there, and I'm going to help them. And I think that the universe plays a game of chess. Sharon Calladine says she's first time here. Hiya, Sharon, and welcome. So, folks, we're coming towards the end of the show. Hi, Rowena. Rowena, is that, yeah, Rowena Putt. And I said around 9 o'clock, I wanted to do a bit of an experimental guided meditation to help you meet your guides. I've given you hopefully lots of different tips and things to talk about. In general terms, we talk about finding a good circle leader. So, Richard, if you can put into the chat window the link to the Spiritual Psychics TV directory, I encourage you all to go to that directory. If you're working as a medium, stick yourself on that directory. If you know of a local church or centre, stick that on the directory if it's not already there. If you know mediums or presenters, people like me, find me on the directory, review me, rate me, but be kind. You don't have to be kind, but please be kind. I'd rather you told me first before you review me and said you didn't like it. Find that directory, and if you're looking for that guidance, find a good circle leader. Start to learn about this. Sit in circle, have the protection of your peers and your circle leader, and do the meditations. Every other Friday morning, we have a guided meditation with Leslie Knight. Lovely lady, Reverend Leslie Knight, leads on our spiritual healing and training. Find a journey and an experience which works for you. But we'll do a little bit of a guided meditation around 9 o'clock. I want to make sure that I've answered the vast majority of questions. I want to make sure that you're armed with knowledge of how to find the Spiritual Psychics TV directory for later. And I also want to give you the heads up that in about 7 minutes, we're going to go for a guided meditation. Joanne Lewis says free will can take you off your own pathway. Yes, yes, indeed, it can. If you're watching this show on playback and you're doing something like operating heavy machinery or driving, then you definitely don't want to practice the meditation during that point. You shouldn't be in a vehicle. You shouldn't be operating machinery. You shouldn't be under the influence of anything like alcohol or drugs too. I always recommend that when meditating, we try and be in a purest state of possible. Back in the days I was first learning, they used to talk about doing this on an empty stomach too. As a big fat bloke, you can see that food and my spiritualism has clearly been compatible as opposed to incompatible, but whatever works for you. Some people like to have had a good wash or a good shower too. Now, Terry Wall says, I was born on the date I was supposed to be born. I will die on the day I'm supposed to die, of whatever it is I die from. But a lot of the things in between happen because of the paths I've chosen. Lovely, Terry Wall. Lovely way to put that. Yeah, that's our own free will, isn't it? A bit like a project. The incarnation of Ashley Robinson, Project 1982. That's the start date, September the 29th. I've mentioned my birthday a few times now, folks. Hopefully people will remember that. I'm joking. Of course, Richards is going to forget it straight away. But there's the start date, there's the finish date of actually the project, and there's going to be a load of products in between. If it was a waterfall project, loads of things that are going to have to be done. They're going to be dependable. Before I can have children, I need to meet my wife Claire. Before I have children, I need to go through those experiences, or I need to X, Y, and Z. So yeah, those things can happen, and of course there is this sense of free will in between. Yeah, lovely way of putting it. And for those that want other things to watch, we did a show with the lovely Kate May. We spoke a lot about astrology and tarot, and she answered a similar question about destiny. So it's a nice way, Terry Wall, of putting it. Right, it's 5 to 9. I'm going to give you all a little bit of a forward notice of some of the other things on Spiritual Psychic TV. And then what we'll do around 9 o'clock, for those that want to participate, we're going to do a guided meditation. And if you want to participate in the meditation, basically you just need to be in a safe, dry place. Dry? Yeah, definitely not in water. I don't want you meditating in a bath and falling asleep. I don't know why I said dry. Probably the influence of the guides. If you're in a bath or in water, get somewhere safe, dry, comfortable, where you can take off your shoes, you can relax. If you're wearing any sort of tight clothing and you're not on camera, take that clothing off and reduce the tightness so you're nice and comfortable, and then you can go through it. Otherwise, just observe it, folks. Observe the meditation. It's not one that I've written myself. It's an inspired one based on different bits and pieces that I've read. So, adverts. Well, it's Friday night. What have we got planned over the weekend? One of the a conversation with Reet. So, brand new show, Saturday, the 19th of June from 2 p.m., live on YouTube and Facebook Live at Spiritual Psychic TV. Down to earth, to the point with nothing held back. Your questions answered in a new Q&A show with readings. Now, I noticed this one's been given an 18 plus reading, Richard. So it says has a colourful vocabulary. Some viewers may be offended. If you're easily offended, folks, the internet's probably not a great place for you in general, but take everything with a pinch of salt and look forward to a conversation with Reet Saturday, 19th of June from 2 p.m. and be ready for some colourful vocabulary. And every Saturday night, and as it's Friday, that'll be tomorrow night for you if you're watching this live. Tomorrow night from 8 p.m, a demonstration of mediumship. And every Saturday night, we'll have a different reader for you, but with the lovely Veronica Jenkins and others live on Facebook and YouTube. This Saturday night, we have a great medium for you. That reader will be, I've forgotten. How can I forget the Mr. Ivan Lee? I say, how can I forget that? I stuck it on Ivan Lee's Facebook page yesterday. So the amazing Mr. Ivan Lee, very unique medium, lovely medium, our vice president at Women of Spiritualist Church, Saturday night from 8 p.m. on Spiritual Psychic TV. And then Sunday morning, what a great way to wake up, grab yourself a cup of tea and join Women of Spiritualist Church. Reverend Ray and Jackie Robinson will welcome you to their Sunday morning service, streamed live from Women of Spiritualist Church with a live congregation for people that are close, and of course beamed out across the planet on YouTube and Facebook. We have the lovely medium Deb Clark joining us on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. There'll be an address from Women of Spiritualist Church, probably a reading or two, and some lovely mediumship with some free readings. So every Sunday morning, a divine service with Women of Spiritualist Church. Just mentioned the lovely Veronica Jenkins, and Veronica is joined on her show by Angela McGee, psychic investigator, for a live interview. So join Veronica and Angela on Sunday the 20th of June from 2 p.m. on Spiritual Psychic TV. Okay, folks, those are all the adverts. It's coming up to 9 o'clock, and I would love to take this opportunity to just go through a nice little meditation. If you've never meditated before and you want to give it a go, you're absolutely welcome to, as long as the other categories have been met. You're not under the influence of alcohol or drugs, operating machinery, or driving, or anywhere near open water, and you've got nothing on the fire, all those types of things that you would ordinarily have to do. Your own free will and accord now, and just get yourself nice and comfortable. Now, we always talk in meditation about grounding yourself, and sometimes it's an old-fashioned sort of spiritualist discipline for that. In practical terms, make sure you've not crossed your arms and your legs, because if you suddenly felt inspired to stand up or talk and you've crossed your legs, you're going to fall over and bang your face. Equally, if you were disturbed and you suddenly had to come out of that meditation, it's good to be nice and comfortable. So if you're in a great chair, some people like to go on the floor, find somewhere comfortable, your arms are sort of rested, and just try and take a moment to give everything that you've got on your chest, on your shoulders, give it back to the universe now. Perhaps it'll stretch out, arms and fingers out. Just get some of those aches and pains going. That gives you an idea of my dad dancing skill there. In your mind's eye. So what's in there at the moment? You got the shopping list, what you got to cook for dinner later. Try and give that back to the universe. Take a moment to clear. Okay, take a moment to clear your mind's eye. And if you are able to, perhaps you'll be more comfortable now closing your eyes. You don't have to close your eyes. If you're going to close your eyes, just listen to my voice and listen to the guide of my voice, and we'll shortly be starting the meditation. But just take a moment, and as you're taking a moment, just think about your breathing. Think about slowing down your breathing. Perhaps be a bit more conscious. Perhaps take in a deep breath right through your nose, and then breathe it out nice and slowly. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Another breath in. Slow it down again. Breathe it out. Okay, Richard. Cue Maestro. Another deep breath, folks. And breathing out. Just tune in to my voice, folks. You are walking along a country lane. The sun is shining. You feel warm and happy. There's an open field on your left and water ahead of you. Large woods on your right. You can hear birds singing in the trees, and a gentle breeze from the sea wafts against your face. You see ahead of you a small path that leads to the right, into the woods. Choose and take that path. It leads at a slight downward slope, winding in amongst the trees. You can see and feel the sun above you shining down through the branches and creating a wonderfully warm and comforting environment. Small animals such as squirrels, rabbits, chipmunks peek out at you as you go on your way. The angle of the descent gradually steepens and you come to a cliff's edge. You are not very high up. In fact, you are no higher than the tops of those trees on the ground below the cliff. You can see that someone has cut large steps into the face of the cliff, and these lead downward to the wooded ground below. You go down these steps. It's an easy descent and you feel safe and secure. As you go down those steps, at the bottom, you cross the short expanse of grass to go once more in and amongst the trees. As you move on, you become aware of the sound of a babbling brook, water in the distance. The sound gets louder as you approach it, and the path makes a turn to the right. You see the brook ahead of you, its busy waters rushing over and around small. The path you're on follows along the side of the brook, and you walk along it, noticing how the water swells and eddies as it goes on its journey. Another small stream comes in to join it, and gradually it swells until it becomes a small river. As you walk on beside it, you enjoy occasional glimpses of fish in the river and a duck or two that lands on the water and then takes off again. A large tree has fallen and it stretches across the river. A mist rises from the river and its upper branches on the far bank. Take the opportunity to cross over, jump up onto the tree trunk and walk across. You feel firm and secure, knowing you will not slip or fall. You hear the birds and a robin in the background. On the other side, you notice a large number of wild flowers and feathers growing in and amongst the trees and underbush. There is another path. You are obviously not the first to cross by the fallen tree. Follow along the path and notice the beautiful red flowers and again the animals and the birds. Ahead of you, the trees start to thin and you come out of the woods into a field. Stop and stand with the woods behind you. Fields stretch away to the horizon ahead of you. Off to the left, you can make out high mountains, and to the right, you can see the wood curving around and off with more fields beyond. But in front of you, in the middle of the field, at whose edge you stand, there is a circle of standing stones. Each stone stands 9 to 10 feet tall. There are a number of them forming in a circle. Great granite monoliths. They look older than time, as if they have stood there for a century upon century. Count how many they are. Now move forward into the ring. You feel happy, warm, and comforted, as if the stones are guardians surrounding you and keeping out all of the negativity. Walk to the very center of the circle they form and sit down on the grass. You are aware of the warmth of the sun and the sound of the birds. Again, you feel that gentle breeze on your cheeks. close your eyes for a moment and breathe deeply. Breathe in all the wonderful, positive energies of this sacred place. As you sit there quietly, you become aware of another person joining you. Keep your eyes closed. This person has come up from behind you now and moves around to face you. It's a good, great presence, a comforting one. It's your personal guide. It's the doorkeeper who has watched over you and looked at your progress for many years. Don't yet open your eyes, but stand up. Reach out your hands and take them as they're offered. Feel them. Feel the love and the warmth that comes from them. Now, slowly open your eyes and see your guide. Do they identify as a man or as a woman? Are they a young or old personality? What are they wearing? Notice everything about this guide. Take a moment and in your mind's eye, ask by what name you should call them and appropriately in the future. Take a moment. Ask if they have a special message for you. Know that this stone circle is a special place. You can come here anytime, knowing that you can meet with your guide or anyone else you wish and be perfectly safe and secure. You can ask all you wish to know of your guide. No one else can come here without your permission. When you have finished speaking to your guide, bid them goodbye and say that you will meet them again very soon. Know that you will return to this place and you will repeat what you've done. But for now, you can turn and walk out of the circle and back towards the woods. You're going to retrace your steps, going back to the river and across the fallen tree trunk. Follow along the path and take part's company with that stream. Now you've reached the steps. Go up the steps in the cliff and head out of the wood again, back on to the country road. Know that you have had a unique journey, but that you can repeat this at any time you wish. You find yourself by the water's edge, feeling that sun on your face, hearing the waves come crashing into shore. You are safe, you are well, you are back where you started. Take a moment to familiarize yourself with where you started this journey and meditation. And when you are ready, you can open your eyes. You are back in the 3D material world. You have had an experience and you have hopefully met one of your guides. Parents, be back with us. Just take a moment and continue to listen to my voice. You are back in the room. You are watching YouTube or Facebook and Spiritual Psychic TV with me, your host, Ashley Robinson. Good evening to you. It's 9:10 and you are back in the room. Okay, folks, we've got a couple of minutes where if you want to share anything, you're welcome to do now. Otherwise, come and join the SPTV fan page on Facebook. Tell us about your experiences. But hopefully you enjoyed that little meditation. You can watch this video again on playback. I was working with a beautiful video that we had here produced by Spiritual Psychics TV by Richard James. And otherwise, that meditation is something I've done many times myself and is a combination of different things that I've read online and in different books. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Very simple way of winding down and throwing back anything you've done, giving it to universe, surrendering yourself to that will, and then inviting your spirit guides to come in and be with you. But as I say, do let us know on the live chat on the Facebook thread. If you were observing what we were doing, what did you observe from that? How did you find that experience? If you've meditated before, did you meditate just now? Was you able to follow? If you were meditating for the first time, was you able to follow the steps? Did you find any synchronicity of what I was doing? Did you see things in your own mind's eye before they come? Or did you go off on your own little journey? So Michaela Hannah says, lovely. Thank you, Michaela. I hope you enjoyed that experience. And for those that had their eyes open, were able to listen to the music. Nicola Humphrey says, thank you. That was lovely. You're welcome, Nicola. Did any of you meet a guide you knew? Julie Caswell says that was lovely. You're very welcome, Julie. Anyone meet an old familiar friend? Stace Shaw says, wow, that was amazing. Oh, great, Stace. I'm glad that was nice for you. Anyone meet someone for the first time? A new guide or a doorkeeper? First experience, perhaps, of a doorkeeper. Christine Davis says, thanks so much. You're very welcome, Christine Davis. For those of you that are already working at some level, how did you find that? Cheryl Flint says she missed it. I don't know if you meant you missed the start of the meditation. If you did, in about 15 minutes, you'll better watch this on playback and can enjoy either the first hour of the show or fast forward to 9 o'clock, Cheryl, and you'll better repeat it. Terry Wall says, I saw the same guide I saw last time. Lovely, Terry. Thank you for sharing that with us. And hopefully everyone is fit and well. And yeah, great confirmation for you, Terry Wall. Richard was just saying. Nice that you get Rafiq. Sharon Rogers says that was lovely. Thank you. No, you're very welcome, Sharon. And hopefully, folks, you've enjoyed the show tonight. Shirley Monaco says, glad that I joined in this week. I'm glad you joined in too, Shirley. And I say this is a show hopefully designed by you for the benefit of you. Sally Worker says she met her son Matthew. Well, thank you, Sally, for sharing that. And hopefully that was nice. Alison Barton says, I met a Native American Indian, first time seeing him. Lovely, Alison. And hopefully, so that's a relationship now you can continue to explore. Michaela says, a doorkeeper, first time, called Ren, never met before. Well, that's lovely, Michaela. Thank you for sharing that with us. Terry says, confirmation for me. That was lovely. Thank you, Ash. Quite emotional. Okay. Hopefully it's a good emotion. Sometimes nice to surrender ourselves. Joanne says, I was just talking to my guardian angel, Michael, and the kids started ringing my bell. Boy in the gun, lovely kids. I understand. I've got two little boys I can hear making a racket behind my door. Hopefully that didn't come across my mic and influence you. Julie says she met a guide that she was aware of but never seen before. Well, that's lovely, Julie. Stace Shaw says mine was female. She called to me, here, here, and was waving at me as I climbed down the step. New guide, her name was Linka. Lovely. Well, it sounds like lots of you have had some really great experiences. Christine met her doorkeeper, Merlin. Lovely. I love that name, Merlin. Always, for me, I think of then the sorcerer and the power of Merlin. But beautiful, Christine Davis. Thank you for sharing that. And folks, it's that time. It's 9:15 on Friday night, which I'm keen to give back to you, particularly as the world is opening up. I just want to say thank you to Spiritual Psychics TV for this opportunity to talk to you about spiritualist philosophy. Remember that these are shows designed by you for the benefit of you. So do engage, do let us know what you want to see. We'll continue to try and keep the content relevant and fresh for you. But Richard James, thank you so much for producing the show tonight, for all the hard work you do, and all of the team of volunteers that book us, mediums and speakers, all of you wonderful fans, for those of you that keep coming back, for the people that have come today, absolutely, really appreciated. My old mate Jim, I'm going to give you the final words at 9:15. He said you thoroughly enjoyed the meditation. I look forward to seeing you at church on Sunday morning, Jim. Folks, good night and God bless. Stay safe and look out and look after each other. Good night.